I realize I gave a lot of examples about the difference between people who accomplish things and people who don't, people who struggle and people who don't. I make a lot of talk pointing out these differences, but I don't necessarily give a whole lot of advice of what to do to go from being a person who doesn't do anything to change their situation to someone who does. And there's a good reason for that. Not completely, but for the most part, there's a good reason for that, because you can't steer somebody else's ship. You know what I mean? You can't pilot somebody else's jet. At some point, there has to be some sort of accountability to where that person has to decide the cost of change will hurt less than the cost of staying. There needs to be some situation, something needs to happen to that person to where they draw a line in the sand and they say, I'm sick of living like this, and I need to find a different way. Otherwise I can't go on. Their why needs to be stronger than their how. The why for doing something needs to be stronger than how am I going to accomplish this. Once you get to the point where you don't care what it takes, your why is so important that the how doesn't matter. I can provide examples. Up until I was 23 years old, I was basically a drain on society. I was working at a bar. I spent more nights drunk than I did sober. I lived paycheck to paycheck. I was spending my rent money on clothes and alcohol and stereo systems and all this shit that you didn't need, and then writing bad checks just to buy groceries. Complete drain on society, no goals, ambitions, was going nowhere. And it took an unfortunate event, my dad dying in a motorcycle accident. It took that specific event for me to realize that I need to do something with my life. This needs to stop. I need to make this man proud of me. And it's sad that it takes something as tragic as that, once that person's gone, to be like, I need to make this person proud of me, when the whole time when you had them there, you should have been making them proud of you. So it's these events that some people need to change them. And within a year after that happening, I was enrolled in college, and I was previously a twice dropout of college. Got a better job, was working full-time and going to school full-time. If it wasn't for that tragic event, I don't know where I would be right now. And I know people who have had these tragic events in their life, whether it be a family member or themselves, or a doctor basically telling them, you're going to die if you don't do something about this. And they still don't change. So it makes you wonder, like, what is it that's going to make that person change? I've given some of the best Rocky speeches to people that there is out there, and it changed their life for about 2 to 3 weeks. And once that motivation runs out, they just revert back to their ways. You cannot base change on motivation. Motivation gets you started, but discipline sees it through. There needs to be that discipline to follow up with motivation. If you base your life and your changes and your ambitions and goals on motivation, it's not going to last very long. That discipline has to be instilled in there. And I think it's because people are scared. People are scared to change. They think that the process of changing is going to be more painful than the process of just staying. Les Brown has a funny story from when he was a kid. One of his friends, on his way home, he would have to ride his bike past this house. And every single day when he rode his bike past this house, this bulldog would chase him, barking, snarling, foaming, and the kid would just ride till his legs burned. Every day he was in fear of his life because this bulldog would chase him down. He would get home crying. It'd be a horrible experience. And after months and months and months of this throughout the school year, finally the kid said, I've had enough. The kid got a rock, And when he's riding home and this bulldog starts to charge him, he gets off his bike, he stands his ground, he holds that rock up, and as soon as that bulldog gets to him, the kid sees that the bulldog doesn't have any teeth. No teeth. There was no threat. There was no threat at all. It was just his perception of that threat that tormented him daily, day in, day out. It was just that perceived threat, when had he just taken a stand in the first place, he would have realized that he wasted a lot of time being afraid for no reason. Your why needs to be stronger than your how. There's so many people that are stuck, whether it be in addiction or other things, like just stuck in addiction, and all they want to do is complain. There's so many people who have these problems, and their addiction is just so overwhelming that there's no way out. It's like they're locked in a cage and there's no key. It's been thrown away. For example, my mother hasn't seen my daughter in at least 5 years because my mother's an alcoholic, and I do not want my daughter to be raised in the same way I was, being around an alcoholic. And it led to many fights, leading to one time it came to a head where I was like, you either need to choose alcohol or your granddaughter, and my mother chose alcohol. That just shows you how deep ingrained addiction is in a lot of people, and you can give them all the Rocky speeches in the world, but until they decide to change, they will not change. Even with something as monumental as you stop drinking or you cannot see your granddaughter anymore. It's been 5 years, no attempts made. So people want to complain, but they don't want to do anything about it. They're so happy to complain about how this lift sucks, their job sucks, their relationship sucks, but they don't do anything about it. Les Brown also had another story. He went to a buddy's house, and his hound dog was on the bench, or on the porch. And while he's talking to his buddy, in the background, this hound dog keeps howling. And finally he says, "What is wrong with your dog?" And his buddy says, "He's just sitting on a nail." He's like, "Well, why doesn't he just get up?" And his buddy says, "Well, I expect it doesn't hurt enough for him to get up. It just hurts enough for him to complain, to howl." And a lot of people suffer from that. A lot of people want to complain about stuff, but they don't want to do anything about it because they're in just enough discomfort to where they're not going to make a change, but they're going to complain about it the whole time. There's a lot of people I come across where they'll have a lift that they're dissatisfied with. They'll constantly complain about how that lift is bad, but on the other hand, they're not doing everything they could to help fix that lift. They're not watching video. They're not finding, their favorite deadlifter, or the deadlifter with the best technique, or the bencher with the best technique, or the squatter with the best technique. They're not studying that person's video endlessly, trying to incorporate those techniques, working hourlessly, tirelessly, trying to figure out how to improve that lift. The only time that they put any effort into changing that lift is when somebody else prompts them to do it. So they're willing to complain about something, but they're not willing to put the work in to fix it. And you can't do anything with that person other than hope that something will happen to where they will see the light, to where the discomfort of what they're going through all of a sudden doesn't seem as bad as the discomfort of change. I got to a point with my back injury to where the depression, the pain, just the everyday bullshit of going through my back injury, all of a sudden the pain of, if I try to fix this and I get hurt again, that pain wasn't going to be as bad as what I was living in. And that was the point where I was like, this has to stop. Something needs to change. And I don't care if I get hurt again in the process. Me getting hurt in the process is going to hurt less than what I'm going through right now. And you have to find that. You have to find your why. And nobody else can find your why for you. People can help you along the way. People are more than happy to help you along the way. But until you find your why, and your why is stronger than your how, you won't change. And that's just something that you have to figure out for yourself. Nobody's going to do that for you. And I guarantee you are strong enough to do it. You just have to find inside the things necessary to instill that change.